Hi, my name's Louise Lyons-Appiah. I'm here with Beyond the Room at the International Forum for Quality and Safety in Healthcare, and I'm here with Daze. If you want to introduce yourself, because I know you'll do much more justice than I would, so yeah.
So I'm Daze Aghaji. I'm a climate justice activist, but my work goes far beyond that. It's about how do we allow humans to flourish in the world, and that's kind of what I've been doing. So I've been doing lots of consultancy, lots of content creation, lots of communication work, and trying to do my best for the climate.
Brilliant. I'd love to know how it all started. Like, what was your background and how did you get where you are today?
Yeah, so my background was I started first in human rights. I worked at Amnesty International, which opened my eyes. I was 18, which was quite, so it was quite an eye-opening experience. And then I went to university and I ended up stumbling into Extinction Rebellion by accident, and it changed my life forever. I spent a few years grassroots organising, and then I went off to do my own things around political stunts and actions to bring awareness to climate, democracy, and other topics like that. And then after that, I decided to go into communications work, and then I was creative director at a place called Earthrise Studio, which is like an online platform around educating people around the climate crisis. And now I work in the cultural space with high-profile artists to get them to make art around the climate crisis.
Amazing. So what specifically are you going to be talking about today? What are you trying to tell the audience?
Well, in hopefully quite elegant words, I'm trying to tell the audience that they can also be activists too. And activism doesn't have to look like being on the roads. It could be in our workplaces, it could be in our schools, it could be in our homes. And all of us can find ways to find our agency through our own personal stories.
Mm-hmm. So what are the kind of, I work in a similar space to you, and I've faced some challenges myself. What do you think are some of the main challenges you've come across in your work?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges is being young and being told I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I might not know what I'm doing, but I think all of us universally have that experience regardless of age. So I guess that's one of the challenges. And also, I think, well, it's not a challenge I experience, but it's a challenge that I recognise. I am a black woman from London who masks as a white woman to a certain degree. I have an educational background that looks more similar to what people would consider as white and middle class. And that's allowed me to get into rooms, but I want people who don't sound like me to get into the same rooms as me. And I recognise my own privilege in my educational background. And I hope that one day that won't have to be a barrier that other people have to face. And if I can use my privilege to make sure that barrier doesn't exist, that's like my main job.
I really, really admire that. I completely agree with you as well.
Yeah.
Similar experience where I've been able to get into rooms because coming from a middle class background, and you know, people are like, they sort of want the face.
Yeah.
And they don't realise that there's so many other people who look like me who are going to come from very vastly different experiences. So
exactly.
I think class is a conversation that needs
never
to be
had.
Yeah.
Needs to be had. Yeah, in my talk, because I actually grew up poor before my mum started a restaurant that made us middle class. So I had to kind of grapple with basically the realization that my life, like, how do I say this? I had to grapple with the idea that the system wasn't made for me, and growing up, and then the system kind of becoming made for you because you have a bit of wealth, kind of became quite alarming and quite concerning for me. So kind of focusing on that class angle, how do we recognise that at this moment there is this class divide that no one wants to talk about, but it does affect our, even affects our healthcare outcomes. It affects the way that we interact with politics. It affects the jobs and opportunities that we go into. So there's something about it that hasn't quite been touched on that really does need to be.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of like who you kind of look up to in your space, I'd love to know if there's someone you admire, or someone who's more like an unsung hero, who are like, people need to know about this person, and this is someone who's kind of informed your experiences and your activism.
Yeah. Weirdly enough, it's my mum. I am my mum's biggest fan, and she's mine. But yeah, my mum is, she's never allowed any of these systemic issues to be the barrier for her success. And that's something that I was lucky enough to see as a young person. And then I believed it could be real in my life as well. So yeah, my mum is like so aspirational. She grew up even poorer than I did in Nigeria, came here with no family at the age of 16, no educational background. She's made successful businesses, even been honoured in Parliament, and she does work for the community. And she taught me that growing up, our role in life is to make the world a better place for the next generation. And if we're not doing that, then
what are we doing?
You have to ask yourself, what are we doing?
And wow, your mum sounds amazing.
She's fab.
Yeah. My dad's my role model as well, so I can relate to the parent thing.
That's
similar.
nice.
Him growing up very poor, moving from Ghana to over here, and
and that's the thing. It's such a universal story. That's it. In my speech, I kind of talk about the fact that my story isn't actually as like spectacular or inspirational as everyone makes it seem. It's a universal story, and it's something that if we continue to tell our stories, and people can recognize that it is the ordinary that kind of allows for the extraordinary. Once we have things like agency, once we have things like community, and that's one thing that I know from my family and growing up like this.
I guess last question then. What's one piece of advice you'd give to a kind of either a younger version of yourself or someone who kind of looks up to you and they want to, get their voice heard in this kind of industry where there's so much, there's so many ingrained ideas of how it should be, and a lot of people have very revolutionary ideas, but they're not exactly sure how to go about inseminating them. So what advice would you give to those people?
Oh, my advice is don't take life too seriously. The best advice, like a woman called Gail, she told me, she went, life, Daze, is not a fight, it's a dance. I remember when she told me that, I was like, what are you on about? But it's this kind of recognition that life goes in ebbs and flows. And, we do the best that we can. We show up in the ways that we need to show up. But then also we kind of allow ourselves to float into many different parts that we may have never thought that we would be in. Like right now, like I'm sat here as a climate activist who trained to be a historian. Never would I thought I'd be sat in healthcare.
I did history as well. Absolutely irrelevant to my day-to-day. So I feel you.
Because you've allowed yourself to flow and kind of move with the sways of life. And that's how we get to our greater success. I think it's just by trusting that if we do good, the world will take care of us. And I know that's very difficult because you have to remind yourself in a society that's so based on scarcity that there is enough for all of us and enough for all of us to flourish and succeed. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
Thank you.